Hola, ¿qué tal? Estamos realizando un recorrido hoy con la patrulla fronteriza aquí en el sur de Texas y nos hemos conocido este par de hermanos que vienen de Guatemala, Rigoberto Parcumes y Antonio Parcumes. Buenos días, ustedes acaban de ser detenidos, ustedes vienen de Guatemala, un traficante de humanos los deja aquí y les dice que se escondan encima de la cabina de ese camión de transporte y que de aquí se van. ¿Qué pasa a partir de ese momento? Cuéntanos rapidito, ¿qué pasó?
No pasa nada, nosotros nos dijeron que nos subíamos ahí y se fue. Nos dejó abandonado más que todo porque no sabemos hacer nada, nosotros no sabemos dónde estábamos, nada.
Ustedes me dicen que vienen de Guatemala, son sobrevivientes del volcán, perdieron su familia, venían buscando un mejor futuro y este es el desenlace. Sí. Y eso les ha dado mucha tristeza.
Sí, porque no tenemos familia, ni papá, ni mamá, no hay nada, se tiraron la casa. Por eso solo nosotros estamos en un negocio en la capital. Sabemos que ya no tenemos familia y por eso decidimos venimos para acá.
Estas son las realidades que se viven en este momento en la frontera. Este par de jóvenes fueron descubiertos ya que el chofer del camión asegura que escuchó y sintió movimiento en la cabina. Ellos habían sido obligados, ellos dicen, a subirse encima de ese camión. Ellos nos cuentan que los traficantes incluso les trataban muy mal, los abusaban verbalmente, les amenazaban con golpearlos. Esta es parte del recorrido que estamos realizando hoy aquí en la frontera. Más información hoy en Noticiero Univisión. Regreso con ustedes.
El vicepresidente de Estados Unidos, Mike Pence, sostuvo una reunión con los presidentes del Triángulo Norte, Jimmy Morales de Guatemala, Salvador Sánchez Serén de El Salvador y Juan Orlando Hernández de Honduras, en la que se destacó la necesidad de ejercer control a la migración ilegal centroamericana hacia Estados Unidos. También se habló de la separación y de la seguridad regional. El presidente Donald Trump está decidido a asegurar nuestras fronteras y llevar esta crisis a un fin, y con la ayuda de ustedes sabemos que lo lograremos. Pence reiteró el compromiso de su gobierno de apoyar a los países del Triángulo Norte, pero comentó que se deben crear oportunidades para su población, ya que la constante migración ya es un problema que atenta contra la seguridad de los Estados Unidos. Ustedes son nuestros vecinos, queremos que sus naciones prosperen. Si van a ir a los Estados Unidos, vengan legalmente, si no, no lo hagan. Por su parte, los presidentes de El Salvador y de Honduras manifestaron su solidaridad con las familias migrantes que recientemente han sido separadas y reconocieron que la región enfrenta problemas en común.
Una de esas caras es narcotráfico, que se consume en el norte y se produce en el sur, pero pasa por los pueblos nuestros, dejándonos una estela de luto y dolor.
Además de la crisis migratoria por la que está atravesando el Triángulo Norte, el vicepresidente de los Estados Unidos, Mike Pence, solicitó que se fortalezca la seguridad regional y combatir el narcotráfico. Desde Ciudad de Guatemala, Erika Porras, Univisión.
Vice President Mike Pence arrived back in Washington early today after a week-long trip through Latin America. He doubled down on the Trump administration's zero-tolerance immigration policy. Ed O'Keefe is in Guatemala City and has more.
Here. This exodus must end. It is a threat to the security of the United States. And just as we respect your borders and your sovereignty, we insist that you respect ours.
Vice President Pence delivering tough talk late Thursday to the presidents of El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. After meeting privately with the three leaders, Pence said,
"Tell your people that coming to the United States illegally will only result in a hard journey and a harder life."
That warning of a harder life is a reality Liliana Medina now knows all too well.
Realmente yo no quise que él viajara, porque la verdad, separarse de la familia.
She didn't try fleeing to the United States, but her husband and 15-year-old son did. Earlier this month, somewhere in Mexico as they traveled towards the U.S., her husband died. Now she waits for her son to be sent back from Mexico to this halfway house for migrants. People who cross the border told us that it would be easier to get into the U.S. with a child, she said. Now, she wishes her husband and son had never left. Here at Casa del Migrante, they'll house at least 2,500 people this year. In this room right now, there's a young family with a 5-year-old boy fleeing violence. They're trying to sort out what they'll do next. Father Mauro Verzelletti runs the shelter. If he could speak with American officials, Verzelletti said he would tell them,
invirtieran menos dinero.
Invest less money on border control and building a wall, and use it instead on economic development. And Medina says Guatemala's government should be doing more to help the nation's poor indigenous people like her.
Lo que debería hacer como el presidente.
The president should provide jobs and help poor people so they don't need to flee, she said. Medina doesn't know when her son will return, but she vows to wait until he arrives. Ed O'Keefe, CBS News, Guatemala City.
A young mother desperate to get back her child. American officials deported Joana Ortiz to Guatemala a month ago after she tried to sneak across the border and claim asylum. But her 8-year-old son is still in the U.S. The only thing she knows for sure is his whereabouts, a shelter in Houston. A social worker with Anthony called in.
I saw him nervous. Even though he seems to be calm, I know he's anxious, restless, and about to cry.
She's spoken with him twice, tried to cheer him up. But she says she's terrified U.S. officials will deem her unfit.
They told me they would give him up for adoption. During those days in those jails, I was not well because they didn't give me any information about my son. They took him without telling me, and that was it.
Anthony is one of 465 Guatemalan children recently separated from their families and detained as a result of the U.S. zero-tolerance policy. On Friday, Joana Ortiz joined outraged Guatemalans in front of the U.S. Embassy here, demanding that the U.S. and Guatemalan governments reunite families. But their plight is only one part of a much larger crisis.
Many say the situation is not only heartbreaking but complex. Family separation in Central America is also voluntary out of great necessity.
On Friday, a reunion between 16-year-old Fermín Lainez and his father Arnulfo. Fermín left 15 days ago on his own to try to reach the U.S. He was caught. Mexican police sent him back to Guatemala.
I may be 16, but I feel I have to fight for my future, to get ahead in life and help my father, because we don't have economic resources.
Guatemalan social welfare officials say more than 2,600 minors who tried to live on their own were deported from Mexico and the U.S. this year alone. Many are united with their parents in 2 government shelters in the country. They provide them with food, a bed, and some psychological help.
They arrive anxious because they want to see their mothers, their siblings. The emotional repercussions will be seen later.
Johanna can't hold back her tears. Her boyfriend hired a lawyer in the U.S., but she hasn't heard from them. She says her options now have narrowed down to praying to God and hoping that a Guatemalan government official will take up her case and help her bring Anthony back home. Mariana Sanchez, Al Jazeera, Guatemala City.
The Office of the Inspector General at the Department of Health and Human Services says it's launching a nationwide review of shelters that house migrant children. The Inspector General's office says that what investigators have seen at some facilities so far prompted them to launch a wider inspection. And a spokeswoman says they're specifically checking employees' background screenings and making sure physical and sexual abuse is being reported. The investigation will look at shelters that house all of the nearly 12,000 migrant children under the care of Health and Human Services, including kids taken from their parents.
HHS has custody of about 2,000 migrant children who've been separated from their families as a result of the Trump administration's zero-tolerance immigration policy. Government officials haven't been able to answer many questions about how those children are being cared for. But yesterday, HHS Secretary Alex Azar told a congressional committee that children in custody have the right to make phone calls to family members.
We want every child and every parent to be in communication at least twice a week so that they're talking by Skype or by phone.
Immigration attorneys and advocates have told us that in reality, those phone calls aren't always happening on a regular basis. But Vice News obtained a recording of a phone call between a 7-year-old boy from Guatemala and his mother. The 7-year-old boy is in an Office of Refugee Resettlement shelter in Arizona. He crossed the border with his father, who is now detained in a Texas detention facility, and his mother and younger brother remain in Guatemala. Last night, the boy spoke to his mother on the telephone.
bien entonces ahí. Sí. Cuando quieras hablar contigo, decides que quieres hablar conmigo, papá. Sí. Yo he estado buscando por hablar contigo y no he podido porque no se podía, el teléfono no servía. ¿Demás niños que están también ahí? Sí, mami. Sí. ¿No salen a otro lado? ¿No juegan ahí, pues? Bien. Bien juegan ahí. ¿Y qué juegan ahí? Sí. No lloré, mi amor, no, estate contento, ya vas a salir de ahí. A tu papito no le han llamado, que quieres hablar con tu papá. Acordate que Dios existe, papá, hincate y orale a Dios, decirle que te ayude a salir de ese lugar de ahí. Sí, por eso estaba hablando conmigo el día de hoy. Me acaba de quedar oro por ti. Dios va a hacer el plan. No, nosotros no sabíamos que eso estaba así, si no hubiera dejado de asegurar con tu papá, pero como pensamos que todo estaba bien ahí, mira que el gobierno fue el que puso eso así. Sí, de ahí vas a salir, no estés triste, ya poquito falta para que te llegue tu papá y te vas a otra vez a estar con él. No tengas miedo, ya vas a salir de ahí. De ahí vas a salir, nada te va a llevar para otro lado, te vamos a volver a ver otra vez. No tengas miedo que no te va a pasar nada ahí, de ahí te van a sacar. Entonces sí, papá, y cuídate mucho y no llores, papá, estate ahí alegre, ahí y sé obediente. Sí. Vamos. Va para Dios, nene. Sí, mamá.
This was only the second time the 7-year-old boy has been able to have a conversation with his mother since he was separated from his father almost a month ago. He still has not been able to speak with his father.